going to go through the life and times of Wendell Bryant. So,
that.
we're going to start off with obviously those first early years. When you first started playing football, when somebody introduced it to you, was it something that you wanted to do? Was it football something that you were like, oh, I see football, I want to play that? Or were you doing a ton of other things before football?
Well, once I started out just like any kid with the rest of the kids in my neighborhood, we were just
football.
Just neighborhood football.
Yeah.
We're just out there, we're playing in the street. Sideline is open, like basically because that's everybody's yard, so that's the grass. So if you got caught on the sideline, you might have got hit up a little bit. So I understood early that I was definitely a little bit bigger than everybody else, but I definitely wasn't as fast as everybody else. But then once the speed started to catch up, once I got to 11, once I got to maybe like 7th, 8th, 9th grade, then my stepdad was like, "Are you going to play football?"
So hold on. So leading up to 7th, 8th grade, you didn't play any organized football?
No organized football. I tried to probably the start of my 8th grade year, but I was at the time when I came in, I was like 6'3", probably 200.
What? Hold on. Into 7th grade?
In the 8th grade.
In 8th grade.
And like going into 8th grade, like coming like the middle of 8th grade, like coming out of it, I was about 6'3", 210 pounds. Yeah, I was a big dude.
So that first grade through 6th grade, you were just always bigger than everybody? Like
I was more of a huskier kid. Like I was just kind of like, like kind of a short little pudgy kid. So
you didn't play any like Pop Warner or any of that?
No Pop Warner.
That's crazy because that's similar to me. I didn't first play football until I got, for us in North Carolina, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade was still junior high. Yeah. And then 10th, 11th, and 12th. So then we need to just skip right to like. So what were you? There were no other sports you were playing. I mean, obviously football wasn't you weren't playing football at the time. So baseball, basketball, none of that was going on during your little years.
Well, no, during the little years, for the most part, it was just going to school. It was just playing outside in the street with the friends. Because also during that time, there was a little bit of an economic gap to where you had to have stuff for cleats, you had to have stuff for to travel, to have the pants and the rest of that stuff. And at the time, my mother didn't have the money in order to be able to do so really, besides just my size, also economic status kind of hinders you from being able to participate in certain sports, especially in the city. Like luckily my grandparents lived in the county, so I was able to go out there, but even then they charged out there. Unless you lived in the district and you were able to actually show verification like I'm at this address, then you couldn't play.
Oh, wow. So it's different because, see, in the South, it was just football was everywhere. There was Pop Warner leagues everywhere, but I didn't play football at an early age just because my mom was like, you're going to get hurt. Like, she was just like, you're not playing, and my mom's military. My mom just like I know your mom. So, once mom was like, that's it, it was like, yes, ma'am.
Right.
So you didn't play any of the sports. So when you got to 7th, 8th, 9th grade, this was just all from being in the neighborhood, just playing with other kids and just competing.
Yes. And then it was finally like once I finally got to high school, finally that end of that 8th grade ended, I went over to basically it was a Matthew Dickey Boys Club. That was the first
like
time.
A YMCA?
Yeah, like a YMCA.
Okay.
So that was my first attempt at playing football. And basically they told my mom like, okay, well he's so big, like he's 12 years old, but he's going to have to play with the 15-year-olds. Wow. And from a standpoint of, like physical, like mentally, he's going to get demolished. So we don't necessarily want to throw him out to the wolves so early. So maybe he should just wait until high school. So she kind of took heed to that. And it was kind of, for me, I was kind of like, well, that kind of stinks. I definitely wanted to get out there, and I wanted to be playing with my friends and playing a little bit earlier. But
I'm blown away. I'm sorry. I know you're looking at me like, what's wrong with you? I'm like listening to this, and I'm like, this is such an unorthodox story to get to where you ended up. Like, I would have thought, well, he's been playing football all his life. I mean, you just all of a sudden decided, okay, Mom, I want to play football. Well, we got to wait. And then you started playing, and you started playing in what grade was the first time? Ninth grade. So is that high school? Or
that's high school.
So you're in high school now. This is blowing my mind because I've known you for so long, and I've never heard this story. I just assumed here's how your path went.
Right.
So when you got ninth grade football and you finally had an opportunity to get out there on the practice field and be around, now you're in high school, you're around these kids that are your size. Are you still as big and imposing, or are you just one of many?
I am still as big and imposing. Like even when I got to high school, I was still head and shoulders above a lot of the other kids there. There was probably one more kid, Kevin Robinson, that was somewhat my size, but he was still only about 6'1", 6'2". There was a kid, Sean Embry, that was my size, but he was like 6'6", a little bit skinnier. And there was a guy, James Atkinson, but he was like 6'6", a little bit skinnier. So there were some guys. Really, the Embry kid was the only one because he was about 6'6", 250, but I was like 6'4", 210, 220 pounds. And
ninth grade.
And then like ninth grade. And then once I got to then I gained probably to 20, 30 more. So we're looking at probably gained about 20, 30 more pounds. So we're looking at like my sophomore year, like going into the middle of that, I'm like 6'4", 250 pounds.
Man, I would love for Deuce to be that size right now. So you were a sophomore. So, okay, obviously you played varsity from ninth grade on?
No, I didn't play. I had to develop too because I didn't play for any of the other years. So when I first got in, like I played freshman football.
Yeah.
So I played freshman football and then went through that period because we were a terrible high school team. Like we went 1-9.
I understand that.
Our freshman team was 1-9, and even the varsity team, they went about 2-8. And 2-8 my freshman and sophomore years. Then I got on probably about the middle of my sophomore year, and then even the sophomore team we went 0-10 or something like that. So finally got to my junior year, we finally started, and the only reason I ended up starting was I finally went to the defensive coordinator, and I was like, hey, I was wondering, could I get some reps at D tackle? I was really, wondering if I could get in there to try.
Like, how does a kid approach a grown man about playing time? Like, that's tough because I can even hear it now listening to you. You're like,
hey,
Coach,
how do I
don't want to upset
anything?
you. I don't want to piss you off.
He was more taken
aback.
from the simple fact that we weren't really that good. So he was just happy that the fact that I had the confidence enough to even walk up to be like, sure, you can get in there, and then. Kind of from there it was a wrap. Like I never.
So once you got in there, you didn't even look back.
I never left the field. Yeah,
that's amazing to me because you're younger than me. You're like 5 years younger than me. So sometimes I forget that. But it's unheard of for a kid just to say, "I've never played football before. I'm walking out on this field and I'm gonna start playing." And then a year and a half
organized
later,
football.
Organized,
like you're playing with your friends, like there's linemen. You're playing the video game, stuff like that.
The basics.
But you being like, okay, this guy's coming at me. This guy's going this way. I gotta watch for this backside guy stepping back this way. Is it a pass? Is it a run? Is it a putt? Like once you get to that level, I would have never thought that I would have gotten to that level, especially how I started off. So I do understand what that means.
That's so during all this time, so 9th grade, 10th grade, now we got to put mom in here. And so I obviously know this, but we're telling people who don't know. Describe your mom as a football fan or a fanatic. Is that a better?
She's more of a fanatic, I would say. Well, definitely, she got the love from her and I both got the love from my grandfather. He was definitely a football fan. He played when he was back. Well, this would have had to been like in the 30s and. Wow. 30s and late 30s, early 40s, sometime like that. He played like semi-pro and played in high school, stuff like that. He was valedictorian of his middle school class, so he was really up there, but wasn't able to have size-wise be able to go into the next level to play football. Yeah. But I think he actually played lineman in his day, but he was only
it's funny how fast forward a generation or two generations, and now here's your grandson playing, and it's just funny how that genetics works.
And he's like and he's only to an extent like I'd say 5'8", 5'9". So back then at that day, he wasn't necessarily the biggest, wasn't necessarily the fastest, but he played real hard and he worked his tail off, at his position. So fast forward, he went to the Korean War, got up out of the Korean War, and ended up coming back here and took his GI Bill, and then moved my mom and moved my grandmother all the way out into the suburbs. So from there, he would be sitting there with my mom, and they would be sitting there watching football games. And this back in 50s, 50s, early 60s, back in those days when we first started to get color TV. He's now one of the few black spots out there, in a particularly not whitely dominated neighborhood. But it was one of those things that galvanized everybody in the community was football. No matter who your neighbor was, no matter who your person was, no matter what side of the block you lived on, everybody dug football.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a beautiful thing to see. So my mother and him, from that time, cultivated that relationship or cultivated that love of the game. And then for me, it was nothing after the fact. I didn't really realize how much of a fanatic my mom was until I started to play in like high school, and then I started to get into the college game because she would, she's definitely a football fanatic. She would leave, her job at Chrysler. This had to be like Friday night sometimes at like 2 o'clock in the morning and drive 5 hours all the way up, go check into the Red Roof Hotel and then come find me, see me real quick and, go to the game. I would play the game, get done with the game, and then she would be at my house, meet me at the house, and be cooking food, and cook food for all the rest of the guys. That's how she still does.
Yes. She absolutely still does it because so you're in high school, and then you get to your junior year. Like, when did you start getting that notoriety? That like, oh, Wendell Bryant, he's good. Because I mean, like I said, when I looked you up, I'm like, Wisconsin during that time. I mean, that was a run heavy league. I say a league, but it's changed now to pass rush, but you had to be physical. You had, hard-nosed football player. So when you got a call from Wisconsin saying, hey, Wendell, we want you, and all these other schools, like, what was that like for you? What was that like for your mom? Because I know for me and my mom, that blew our mind. It was the first time either one of us had ever been through that. So, like, what was that like for you getting that notoriety? And then what was it like for your mom trying to balance that ego and also balance that, wow, my baby's got a real chance at this?
Well, for the most part, with the ego, I think I kept my own ego in check because I had super anxiety. So I was just basically out there just playing as hard as I possibly could so I didn't get embarrassed. Through that playing, and that initial and that also that added fear of I do not want to get embarrassed out here and I do not want to have my face in the ground. That kind of helped the situation. So for my mom, she really didn't necessarily need to keep my ego in check because I already kept my own ego in check from that point. And then my grandfather was there. Like, luckily for me, my grandfather was that steady force and that steady, pat on my back from adolescent years of, 11 and 12, because my mother actually moved up to Indiana for a bit of time, but I still wanted to stay down here. So for at least about 18 months to a 2-year period, I stayed with my grandparents. And during that time, at the time, I'm moving away from my friends. So I'm thinking like, this is about to be terrible. This is about to be the worst. And to an extent, it was a little bit, it was like, it's hard to get used to. I got regular TV, I just got a basketball hoop outside. It was nothing to do. But during that time, I learned through that solitude the discipline needed. And I learned the discipline, and I learned the work ethic needed in order to persevere, in order to be able to last in high school. And then the work ethic that I did learn was able to carry me through not only high school, but to college and into the pros.
So now it's senior year. What were your top 5 schools? And then why did you choose Wisconsin? So you have these, all these schools. You have to weed them out. You've narrowed it down now to not even top 5. Let's say top 3 schools. Obviously, Wisconsin is one of them. Like, what led you to that final Wisconsin is where I want to call home?
Well, at the time, I was playing football, but I wasn't necessarily focused on football. Like, I was just trying to play football to get to school because I understood, even through having conversations with my grandfather, he was like, I don't know how we're going to get you to college. Like, that money does not exist. Like, we might be able to get you to a community college, but you would still have to, do a whole bunch of other extra things in order to be able to get a D1 shot. So I understood that. And with that, I just tried to work as hard as I possibly could while I was playing football in high school to get that shot. Now, once those shots came around, it was just – I was super overwhelmed, super, just excited and super wow, like I can't believe
this is me. This is really happening.
Like, for real, me.
And wow, I didn't think I was this good.
Even still to this day, I have those conversations with kids. It's like, I never thought that I would be this good, or I never thought that I could be this good. It's like you're not supposed to. You're just supposed to work. You're supposed to put your head down. You're supposed to do the work and get it in, and then that way you're supposed to have a bit of confidence as far as like determination wise. But don't let your ego get too far out of whack with anything. You just want to stay forward, and you just want to stay focused as far as being able to be present in the moment. Like, don't get too far ahead. Like, oh man, I can't wait till I get to the pros, or I can't wait till I get to college. Just be into that for that day. Because I think a lot of the times, whatever age, whatever time period is, that age group of 15, 16, 17, 18, we get ahead of ourselves. We want to become an adult too fast and not living in the moment, realizing for the day, you're being the best you can for the day, and just worry about that, which is one thing that I definitely had to learn myself.
Okay. So what made you choose Wisconsin? Why Wisconsin?
Okay, so the top 5 schools were Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Purdue, Illinois, and Northwestern, and I took an unofficial visit to Missouri. But at the time, I was focused on chemical engineering. So Purdue, Northwestern, and Wisconsin were 3 of the top engineering schools in the Midwest. Like I wanted to be 3 of the top engineering schools in the Midwest. So I wanted to be able to have somewhere where I could play, but also my parents be able to see me, my grandparents be able to see me, and I'd be able to thrive in the field that I was thinking about. Like I wasn't thinking about professional football. I was thinking about, okay, well, I'll be able to, go 4 years. I play football, but go 4 years, maybe possibly get out with a chemical engineering degree, go over to Monsanto back in St. Louis. Like I always assumed like I was going back to St. Louis.
I never wanted to go back to North Carolina, bro. I'm going to tell you that right now. That was never, once I left North Carolina, I never looked back.
I hear you.
That was not a place for me.
I feel you. I was just, for me, from a standpoint, that's just always what I thought was one. Like I didn't think any more past, like, oh, okay, look, I'm gonna go these 4 years.
Travel the world.
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna travel the world. I'm gonna go here. I'm like, man, I'm gonna come up here. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna get a degree. I'm gonna go back home, get a good job, and everything's gonna be cool. So, end up choosing Wisconsin because there was one of the top chemical engineering programs in the country. And at the time, when I went up there for my visit, like I had fun on all of the other visits except Wisconsin. When I went to Wisconsin, it was cold. My recruiting visit was just it was not what it needed to be. It was not up to par. My host, he left me at a party and then was kind of like, like, hey, have fun, make it happen on your own. Like we'll see if you can make it. And kind of was like, all right. And then in my brain, I'm like, well, it's kind of crappy up here. So I'm definitely going to be able to get my degree done because I'm not going to be wanting to have any fun or any kind of stuff up here.
Man, we're like night and day with our thought process.
Totally
like I was on a partying and which schools partied the best and who had the best looking people on campus.
Right.
Oh, man, that's good.
I was going thinking like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get this degree up here. I'm like, this place is boring. I'm like, there's not going to be much to do. I'm not going to get in any trouble, any kind of stuff like that. They got a solid football program, but mainly I was going for school. And then football just kind of started to fall into place.
So school was like take a back seat to like your education. Like I can tell you, and we both know the same people, football, when you talk to most guys, it's like, I was going to school for football.
Right.
And, along the way, look what I got. You get your degree. And so to hear someone actually sit up here and say, no, I had football was the furthest thing from my mind. I knew I could play. I knew it would get me in school, but I wasn't thinking I was going to play as a freshman. I was going to, all these awards were going to come. I just wanted to go to school. This was my plan. And it's just funny how all that changed. So this now you choose Wisconsin and this is your first year there. And I don't want to spoil it, so I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about it. But you get there and you start having success and you start realizing like, maybe I'm not going to redshirt. Like, so what was that first year like of knowing, working out, getting on campus? Now you're alone for the first time. Like, just take us through that first year for you.
That, to me, was probably the most, eye-opening experience because I got basically just kind of dropped on the doorstep.
Yes.
Like I was late driving up there. Like my mom, we got us on the road, but I was late a little bit getting up to the seminary place wherever we were scheduled.
Hold on, let me just check. So you were late showing up to an appointment?
Well, yes, I was late.
Like today. I'm messing
a
with
little
you.
big. I was like two or three, but I did find the place eventually too. But yeah, I was late showing up to the place, so I'm running up there. They're like, "Wendell, get your clothes on." So I get my clothes on. I'm doing everything. So they get me out there with the rest of the guys. So the first thing we're doing is like a running test. So I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Oh yeah.
I'm like, "Cool." So
what
I'm
was
like,
your running test?
Was it 300? It was the 300-yard shuttle. And
okay, so you had to run the width of the field.
So we ran
the length like a suicide. So you start in the back of the end zone.
No, that's what we did. We went from one end zone to the one end zone.
Oh, you ran like
the one end zone to the one end zone, and then the one end zone to the one end zone, and the one end zone to the one end zone. So yeah, like we did like that basically, and I was like, okay, we'll see who's in shape. So I didn't actually go up there for the summer conditioning program like all the freshmen do.
Big mistake. So hold on. So you got to make sure that you explain to those kids you need to be there. If you can get that's a good point there. So if you could go back and talk to a young Wendell instead of hanging out in high school, it sounds like you'd be like, Wendell, you need to get your ass up there early so that you can be in shape and be ready to go.
But see, here's where we're different. I was in shape. I was ready to go.
Really?
I was the first one. I was the first one to finish.
So you did all this work at home?
I did everything at the crib.
That's impressive.
Like, no, like
I would never. So you got the book, and then they were like, here's what you need to do.
I can't even tell you. I wanted out. Like how you wanted out of Carolina, I wanted out of St. Louis. So my whole focus was getting out of here. Like I knew, like I was like, this is fun, but I was like, these guys here and these cars here and this this atmosphere here,
This
these
is
girls
not for
here,
me.
like this is cool, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me take my little job. I was working at Office Max, so let me do my little stuff at Office Max. Let me work out and get ready to go, because I worked out for the simple fact of so hard because I didn't want to get embarrassed. I was like, okay, now I'm going to the school, like, okay, now I'm going to the school. There's going to be dudes 6'7", 6'8", 6'6", 6'5", 6'4", 340, 330, 320 pounds. I need to be ready strength-wise and speed-wise to be ready to go. So I was running on my own. I was working out on my own. I was doing everything that I needed to do. And it didn't matter. I took the bus up there. Like, I didn't live in the same district. Like, my grandparents, they stayed in one district, and then I stayed in the hood with my mom. So I would get on the bus.
Get on the city bus.
Get on the city bus, ride up there. It took about probably like 10, 15 miles, and walk off, get to the school, and then do my workout. I would be up there for about 3 hours, and then I'd ride home, talk to the dudes. But this is like 90s. This is like 97, so there's not much to do. You know, there's not stuff like that.
And I
like,
love
we're not
that
distracted.
because you get these, and I know this takes on it. Kind of, we're going to take a left here, but it goes into these trainers and people who want to say, if you come work with X, Y, and Z, we will improve this. And here you are saying, no, I had a bus pass. I used to go up there where I could practice at. Like, I took it upon myself to say, I want to be the best. I want to be great. And so that's what drove you, because it's crazy, because when I think about my own story, it took a little more fire. Like, this is embarrassing. It's not embarrassing, but it is what it is. It built to who I am. When I was young, I'm getting ready to go to high school, and a buddy of mine wanted to go to Kings Dominion. Okay. Kings Dominion, little amusement park. It's like a very cheap version of Disney World.
Yes.
And so he was like, yeah, we're going to go. So this is during summer workouts for high school. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to Disney World.
Right.
Or excuse me, Kings Dominion. And I get back from my little vacation, and good luck, you're on JV. You should be on varsity, but because you made these bad choices, so for you were so afraid, like, I got to get out of here. I think I got to a point to where I started thinking, I
was afraid to screw up. Yeah. I always thought I was never good enough. So I was always trying to overwork and outwork everybody else, because like, even inside of the frame at the time, like, I was a wallflower. Like, I didn't know how to talk to girls. Like, I didn't know how to move. Like, I was a dude that liked cartoons, and I like video games, and I like you know what I'm saying, like the stuff
so
like
just
a kid
like a
would
little
like.
gamer. So you'd be a gamer
I was
today.
A little dude. Yeah, I was just a little kid. Like, I was just a kid. So I was like, okay, so I'm getting it. I finally get into like 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, and luckily for me, football was what gave me that confidence. This is what gave me that badge to feel like, like, I belong to something. I'm going out here as a team, and we're going out here as a group effort, to try to get something done. Whether we win, we win. Whether we lose, we lose. But at least
we're going out here together. Yeah,
we're going out here together. And again, that being with those guys, even though I knew we weren't that good, I knew we had some fast and talented dudes that I thought they were really athletic, but I knew we weren't that good. But being out there with them gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I can be out here myself. Right. I can be out here. I can actually play.
Now, speaking of that confidence that you built in high school, now you're in college.
So first year of college. Yeah.
And so this is, for me, this is all looking you up for the first time, Wendell.
Right.
Because like I said, I've known you for years. I know your kids. I know your wife. I'm like, we're family. So I'm like, dude, I don't need to look you up. So I'm looking you up for all this. And I'm reading your stuff, and I'm like, so you played in back-to-back Rose Bowls, so freshman, sophomore year, which is absolutely amazing. I never played in the Rose Bowl, always wanted to. I used to watch that on TV. I watched the guys holding a rose in their mouth.
Dude, it's so cool.
I love that. I love the history of all that. So you played in 2 back-to-back years, and you played as a true freshman. So what's that Rose Bowl experience like? 'Cause I'm getting excited talking about it, so I can only imagine you as a freshman.
Goodness. So we obviously win the game. I think we ended up we beat Penn State the last game. They played us at home, so we beat them the last game of the year. We get the nod, we get the call, because we were in a 3-way tie with Ohio State, Michigan, and them for the title. But because of the tiebreaker, I think we ended up going that year. So we ended up going that year. We get the rose, we get the call. And you're going out to Pasadena, you're just like you're an 18-year-old kid. Like, that's what I'm saying. I just turned 18 in September. So I'm going out there, being around with the guys a little bit, going out to a couple of places. And I'm just tagging along.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You
like,
don't know.
Like, I don't even have no super personality or anything like that. I'm just tagging along. I'm just, going places. But my one thing that I did translate from high school to everywhere else is that, obviously, me, I dance.
Yes.
So when I'm going out,
you need to see that too.
So if I'm going out with everybody. They're like, here come Dub. Then I'm like, yo, where we at? I'm like, I'm gonna hit the dance floor. You already know. That obviously me, a person of my size and stature, dancing, you know, having a good time, giving out that energy. At the time, I didn't understand that, but it brings, you know, it definitely gravitates the girls by you. It definitely gravitates the rest of the crowd by you.
Yeah.
So dudes would just be up like, Dub, you always bring the crowd. And I'm like, I'm not trying to. I'm just having a good time.
Big dude
like,
out here dancing.
Like,
yeah.
we get that. You just keep having a good time, and we will handle the rest. I'm like, cool. So go out there for that first time, but the pageantry is exactly what you're thinking about. Like you got your red jacket on. You go to the first little introductory dinner, and it's like prime rib, and you meet all the Rose Bowl parade people, the court. You meet the princes and the princesses of the court. You have dinner with all of them, and you go to all the functions. They have a giant. They had a giant tailgate for us and a giant pep rally for us. There had to at least been. And I know the stadium fit probably about 70, 80,000. There had to at least been like 40 to 50,000 Wisconsin people there. Like at the time, we hadn't been to the Rose Bowl since, this is 98 we went. It had been 4 years since we had went. So we got that first taste of it, actually won in 94, so people were chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were called the worst Rose Bowl participant that had ever been
That's all right,
one of
though.
the,
You were there.
by one of the commentators. So we decided to get out there, and we decided to show them what was up. And it's funny, that year we actually if Miami doesn't beat UCLA, we end up playing Arizona in the Rose Bowl.
Well, that's how long it's been, because let me tell you, Arizona's been a long time since Arizona's been good.
it has, and I'm happy with the new talent that they have coming in. Certain people, obviously, you know, than others, that they're gonna be fine.
They'll be just fine. So okay, so as we start to wind this thing down now, you know, you played in 2 Rose Bowls. You're a defensive lineman of the year, junior and senior year. Now here comes the draft. Here comes one of the biggest moments, one of the biggest dreams you've had. Most of these young men out here dream of that day, walking across that stage and getting their name called. I mean, you were a number 12 pick. That still blows my mind. Like, I've known you forever. And when I think about that, I'm like, dude, he was almost a top 10 pick. So what was that like leading up to the draft with your family and all the excitement and pageantry? Like, that had to be like just overwhelming.
It's super nerve wracking, you know, because you're thinking at a time, you know, even when you're 21, you're like, oh, okay, I'm a grown man, I'm an adult. But even still, it's so eye opening. You know, you're getting picked up by the Cowboys. You know, you're meeting Jerry Jones. You know, you're still Star Trek. It doesn't matter who
absolutely,
you are.
You're starstruck.
You're meeting Jerry Jones. You know, you're going into. We went to Kansas City to meet the Hunts. You know, I had actually, you know, Joe Green show up to the university, and he actually, you know, ran me through workouts and stuff. And there are dudes in there. They're like, "Is that him?" I'm like, "Yes, it's me, Joe Green." Yeah. Stop. Just like, dude, just be quiet. It's cool. Like, but it's such a thing. You know, you don't realize how selective of a part of a group of people you are until you start to get to meet the people that are a part of that group, and be like, like you've done well enough to get to meet a certain select group of people that you actually played this game that well. And I never would have thought I would have been somebody to do that, to play that game that well. But I tell anybody this, I'm like, put the work in, and you put the work in when nobody's looking. And when I'm talking about, like, the reason I was able to win that running test when I went up there my freshman year and coming in late was the fact that I was working. I was running hills by myself. I was running on the track by myself, talking to myself like, oh, you know, the 4th and 1, you know, we're at the goal line, you know, pass.
But that's,
you know,
every
Bryant
kid
makes
playing
the
in the
move,
front yard,
you know,
with the basketball. 3 seconds left on the clock. Michael Jordan, and how many times have we done
but
that?
Then it is every kid, but then in the same token, it's not every kid. Because it's literally, it's like a lot of kids don't even get that chance to even be like, I think that I can dream, or I think I got the size or whatever to even be that person to be able to do that. So it is a serious thing, and it is a huge thing to give that confidence to the kids to be like, you know, you can be this, to go out and see them and be like, you know, you can eventually be the person that people thought I was. And I just was out there just playing football, just having fun. You know what I'm saying? But everybody, you know, like hopefully I want everybody to get that chance one time to be like, to be the biggest person in the room, or to be the person everybody's looking at in the room. Like, it's a heck of a thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you go in there, but it's a lot of hard work involved. It's just like you said, it's not something that you're just handed to. You have to work for that. You have to put in the hours in the dark. You know, myself, you, even Deuce now, you know, my son has put in the work just to get to college. Now he's got to put in even more work to stay there, to get on the field, to be a starter, to even have an opportunity to go to the next level. So you get it just comes down to hard work, and you get kids who think it's just, I can bypass certain steps. I can jump over this step. I can cheat the system, and it's not. You get out of it what you put in. So
trying to outthink the process.
Yeah, you're trying to reinvent the wheel, and there's no need to do that, because look at everybody who came before you. And for me, once I really started to understand, like, Russell, you got to put in the work. Like, I was good. I was talented. I was kind of like you. I was shy, but I was still like, I'm pretty good at this. And I started feeling myself a little bit. And I think a few times, especially in high school, it got me in trouble. And I can honestly say it got me in trouble in college, because you do start being the biggest in the room. And when you've always been the biggest in the room, sometimes you forget that, hey, you need to step back a little bit and be cool, and just let stuff come to you, and let people say, hey, Russell's a good guy. So that's something you have to learn.
There's a level of responsibility that comes with being the biggest man in the room, or the biggest person in the room, that you don't understand at 17, 18, 19, 20. You can, even as a dad of an athlete, try to groom a young man to be ready to be that person, but even it still depends upon the temperament of the kid to be like, are you ready to be the man? Because some are just like, even though you have all the preparations, you know how to speak or whatever, they're like, I've seen how this road goes. I don't want anything to do with it.
Some people don't want it.
Yeah, and some people are like, you know what? Like, I've like, from where I am, it's got to be much better than where I am. Is whatever that is, it has to be much better than where I'm at. So I'm willing to take this dive in, and I'm willing to bet on myself to see if I can win.
And that's so great, because you see these kids, and, I know you're like me. You want to pass that passion of football on, and not just football, but just that passion of any sport, anything that you want to grab a hold of and make it yours and be the best at it, whether it's playing the violin or the cello or being on the chess team. It takes days, hours, years to be the best. You don't just say, okay, I'm going to look at a couple videos and go out here and do what these people are doing. So, it's great to have you on, man. I appreciate you showing up. And
always.
This was like something that, was really exciting to me, because it's like I get to know people that I thought I've known for years, and I really didn't know them like I thought I did. So, man, I appreciate you being here.
Of course, anytime, what I'm saying, I know this is going to be definitely a great podcast, very informative, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, the proper people on, it's going to be really, really cool.
Okay,
we got a great start, though, man.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being on here. Thanks for tuning in to The Route. Don't forget to subscribe and connect with us on socials for exclusive updates. We'll see you next week.